taking the preparation that you receive, taking what you've learned, thinking about all the experiences that you have, and then going out there and really making a difference in the world. And that nothing gives, I think, both me and our faculty any greater pleasure to see that kind of impact that we know that we can have in the world. So it's great to see you all here. This is something new for us. We have tried to do something like this right after the graduation because we didn't want to just have people come at the end of graduation and just have coffee and lunch and cookies. Actually, they show up on time though. That was probably the best thing about that. But we started trying to say, well, we really want to hear some students' voices and kind of share with their colleagues, their peers, but also their parents, their caregivers, the people who come to support them. Give them a chance to kind of talk a little bit about what their experience meant like. But we also recognize that people after graduation were tired of speeches and it was really hard and people wanted to just take pictures and we were trying to do coffee and so on. It wasn't working very well. We said, well, let's try something just a little bit different this time. Let's do it on a Friday afternoon. And so it's absolutely wonderful to see you all here and hoping that this might be the tradition that we have in terms of that opportunity as a college to really congratulate you and to really hold up your accomplishments and your achievements and really to give you another opportunity to share with us your own community perspective. In advance of having the students speak, however, we thought we'd invite one of Western's distinguished alumni, and so we've invited Superintendent Greg Baker to come and give a few words. Greg actually went to Gonzaga for his bachelor's degree, but he came here. He was a Western alum. He came here and got his master's in teaching degree in secondary education. He taught in Alaska, was an instructional coach up there. And then he went to some other just okay universities, community college like Harvard for his master's degree, and then another kind of community college, Harvard, for his doctorate degree. So he comes from obviously a really well-experienced in terms of teaching background, but also in terms of educational experiences. He has worked as an administrator in Boston schools, in schools in Spokane, and schools most recently in Portland, and now for the last 2 years he's been superintendent in Bellingham. Those of you who work in Bellingham know and really probably really impacted by his leadership. And that whole idea of the one-room schoolhouse, the idea that even though there are 17, 18 schools, I can't remember exactly how many there are, it's really one school. And we don't do things differently for one school that we do for another in terms of really thinking about these are all of our schools. And the Bellingham Promise, a really powerful strategic vision for what a district supposed to go, really guides the work of Bellingham schools. So we've asked Dr. Baker to come and share a few words with you. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Baker.
Thank you. Thank you, Francisco. Thank you very much. Is it all right if I stand right here? All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, over here. The dean asked if I could he said, I think he was in one of our schools yesterday or the day before, I believe, at Shucks, and I was just there and hearing about it. And we gave you an entire hour to speak, so I'm guessing that I get at least an hour with all of you. And I'd love to spend an hour with you, but I know that I have about just a little bit shorter than that. So it's a real honor to be to ask to come back as an alumni. As the dean said, I spent some of my first graduate years here at Western. I lived up in Buchanan Towers when I was here. Anybody BT live there? No? It's a great place to live. Top floor, vaulted ceilings, very cool. And I was remembering back, and it was 20 years ago when I was here. I was here in the early 90s. And I was remembering back to when I was the students, and I know you four are students. Some of you, I'm not sure if you're students or siblings, but when I was here, and a couple of memories I have. One is I had 3 jobs when I was here. I drove the shuttle bus at night to take people from the library back to their dorms. On Friday nights, it seemed like people were maybe going down the hill to parties, maybe, I don't know. But I was a shuttle driver. I also worked at the candy counter at the student union, and I also became a sailing instructor out at Lakewood. I took a sailing class while I was here, all of a sudden fell in love with sailing, and ended up becoming a sailing instructor, and that kind of changed my life as well. So I remember having 3 jobs while I was here. I also remember one of my professors who's not here anymore, and I don't know if there's any faculty here who had worked with him, but his name was Dr. Billings. And what I remember about his class, which was unique and changed kind of my thinking about education, is it was the only class I ever took where he said, I'm never going to take attendance, I'm never going to give you a test, I'm never going to give you homework, I'm never going to give you, y'all get blanket A's. And it's like, wow, this is a cool class. I want more of these. And it was all about learning. So if you want to come and learn, you come and learn. And I would come every night and we'd sit in a circle and we would start talking about education and start talking about things that I didn't think had anything to do with education, but it all really was fundamental things. And his class was just a class I'll never forget. And it was the class I looked forward to going the most. I don't think I ever missed it. And every night after class, I'd then go down to the Colophone Cafe and I'd be finding books about whatever it is we talked about that night. So the magic of a teacher instilling the love of learning without any of those coercive things that we do oftentimes in education. When I left Bellingham, I was looking for a little adventure, and I was talking to some of the graduates and hearing about what their plans are after tomorrow. While I was here, I had another job, I guess, in the summer, and that was driving tour buses for Gray Line of Alaska, Holland America. They had a training here at Western during the school year, and so during the summers while I was here at Western, I'd go up to Alaska, and I learned how to drive a big tour bus, and I had a microphone, and I'd give people tours of Alaska. Anyone from Alaska in here? Anyone spent significant time in Alaska? You guys know where Alaska is? Yeah, okay, all right. So while I was a student here, I'd spent my summers up in Alaska driving a tour bus and falling in love with the place. And so when it was time for doing my student teaching here, and I was in, as I said, a master's program, but it was a master's program for someone who had a bachelor's degree but had not decided to be a teacher yet. And so I got my teaching certificate. I got another bachelor's degree in English while I was here and my teaching certificate. And I met some people up there in Alaska while I was up there. And a lot of teachers drove buses because they had the summers off. So the tourism industry is a great place for educators sometimes to have a summer job. And I met this fabulous English teacher up there. I was at high school level, as was mentioned. And so I said, I want to go student teach with her up there. And so I was a student here at Western, and I wanted to student teach in Alaska. Now, I don't know for the administrators here how easy something like that might feel to do. It was not a norm of the university to let somebody go to Alaska to student teach. Maybe it is. Is that, can you do that now? Is it? Absolutely. Perfect. Yeah. So it took, I probably spent, yeah. All my coursework was done, but I had to go through the maze here and then the University of Alaska Anchorage and get all these agreements. And, you know, the university wanted to assure I had good supervision up there and such. But the university worked with me and made it happen. So I went up there and did my student teaching up there in the Anchorage area. So many of the graduates I just talked to, that's what you're going to be doing next is substitute teaching. And I loved substitute teaching. Now I'm guessing in today's world with highly qualified and such, you can't go teach any subject. You're probably going to be teaching what you're certificated for. Is that right? Like, can you go? So you can go teach high school. Excellent. Go do that. Go. You know, and it maybe isn't best for kids, but go do some crazy things as part of my message, and go substitute in different places. As superintendent, you know, the dean talked about this concept we have of a one schoolhouse where we all take care of each other. Another phrase that we use under that is I didn't invent this phrase, but we walk in the shoes of someone else, you know that phrase. And I encourage our staff and our team to take a day and switch jobs with somebody else, or go walk in the shoes of somebody else to learn a different part of the world, a different part of our district in this case. So I have kindergarten teachers who I'm pushing to go switch with a 12th grade physics teacher for a day and switch jobs. One of the things I'm doing this year as superintendent is I'm spending a full day in every grade level, starting with pre-K. So a couple months ago, I spent a full day as a pre-K teacher. Last month, a full day as a K. First grade, a couple weeks ago. And I'm walking in the shoes of a teacher at every grade level. To walk in the shoes and see someone else's perspectives. So that sense of that value of diversity and equity and understanding different points of views is really important. And I think as a substitute, it's going to be your one chance to go spend time subbing in a variety of classes. I remember conducting an orchestra. I remember teaching, French, things that, I had no business teaching, but but it prepares you for life, I think. When I left, so I student taught in Anchorage, and then I wanted some more adventure. Being in Alaska was awesome, but it was not. I wanted something even more. So I took a job up in Kotzebue, Alaska, which is up in the Arctic, an Eskimo village up north of Nome. You only can fly to it. And I was the high school English teacher. I taught all the high school English classes. And I remember one of the classes, so freshmen, we changed, and anyways, one of the classes was British Lit. It was British Lit, American Lit. And it's like, I'm in the middle of the Arctic in Alaska, and we're studying British Lit. And I hope I'm not offending any professor here, but we got rid of that, and it's like, let's have some Native American Lit and some World Lit. And so we put in some classes that, to me, just seemed more meaningful than this. And again, British Lit is really good stuff. I'm sure I've offended somebody. And you got to have a little bit of Shakespeare, I get that. But so I taught all these different English classes, and I taught Russian. And I didn't know any Russian. But again, I was an English teacher. That's a language, so Russian. So I figured. And what was great about that experience, it was kind of like the subbing. What I learned a little bit better is to be a facilitator of learning. And so that, you guys have heard the sage on the stage or the guide on the side. There's value in both, being able to do both of those. But having to teach Russian, I was the night before just trying to keep up with my students the next day, and usually I was a step behind them. But I learned to be humble as a teacher, or more humble, and not feel like I have to know all the answers, and that students can learn. And so for the students here, they know the word pedagogy, and then content knowledge. When I taught Russian, I had some pedagogy of how to facilitate learning. I had no content knowledge. And it was a really fun experience. But the kids didn't learn as much as if I had had both content and pedagogy. And so I realized that it would be better if if I could have spoke really good Russian. But it was a fun learning experience. The last thing I want to share about my time up there in Alaska that's influenced me, and even today it's making me think, and I might say some things now that I haven't said verbally yet, and that's why I'm worried about this camera here. But one of the things I did up there is I was a volunteer for the fire department. It wasn't a very big fire department, but we had an ambulance. And I remember one night, and it was probably 35 below zero, and most of us rode snow machines, snowmobiles to work. And got a call, and you have to plug your snowmobile in to keep it warm, or else it freezes. The oil in the whole engine block freezes. So I remember we got a call. So I go out there, I start up my snow machine, I get to the firehouse, I get in an ambulance, and so I'm going to pause right there with that story, and I'm going to back up just a little bit. Let me continue with the story. We go to a house, and we pull up to the house, and I walk in, and when I walk in, it's a one-bedroom little log cabin, and it's got a couch, a refrigerator, and a bed, and that was about it. No bathroom. We used honey buckets in some of the places. And there was a young girl that was on the bed, and then an adult that was sitting on the couch. So this is where I'm going to pause for a minute. In my class as a first-year teacher, I had kids, just like you've experienced teaching a wide range of kids. And I had this one girl that would come into my class. She wasn't there every day, but when she did come, she'd usually sit in the back. She'd put her hood over her head, and she often would fall asleep in my class. She would never have her homework done. She would never participate. I couldn't engage her. And I remember feeling upset with this student, like, how dare you do this in my class? It's like, you're going to come here, show some respect, be on time, all those things as a teacher. And I remember just feeling these feelings of how, you're not a good student. Well, it turns out that was the student's house I walked into that night. And I got to experience that, really walking in someone else's shoes. And I got to see the life that she was leading and the circumstances under which she was trying to survive. And that shifted me right there to the next time I started my class was not that feeling of, why are you late? It was, what a brave young soul that you even make it to my class when you do. How incredibly courageous you are, and how dare that I had those feelings of judgment that I had on that student. So I say that to say, and I think that led me to this feeling, the concept of walk in someone else's shoes. As an educator, you're going to be controlling, you're going to be helping, change people's lives literally. And I guess a lesson was to understand the kids and where they're coming from before you make judgment about who they are and why they're doing what they're doing. And I guess what I'm going to end with was, this is where I haven't ever said it quite like this, is as a superintendent, there's certain things that I'm held accountable to by the school board, by the community. If there's like one metric that I should be held accountable to, what would be one of those? What's a common thing that as a school district you want to make sure your number's getting better and better? Somebody. Who said that? Yeah, test scores, graduation rates. So so both of those right in line together. And graduation rates is a big one. And I was in a meeting recently, and I should say that after Alaska and I left, I became a principal of an alternative system in Spokane for all the kids that were struggling in school and trying to figure out how to help them. I was in a meeting recently where we were talking about how we get kids, certain kind of kids that were struggling into our schools. And the conversation at the table was around, well, we can't let those kids into our school because they're likely to not graduate and it will hurt our dropout rate. And it clicked for me the other day, and it helped me articulate why I have never been in front of my principals or teachers and said, your graduation rates are this and they need to be here, or your test scores are this and they need to be here. But it wasn't until the other day I figured out why, is because if that's the focus, the system will do perverse things to make that measurement, and they're not necessarily good for kids. And so what I want to be able to do, what I thought about yesterday to my staff, is I need to go in front of them all and say, our goal is to double our dropout rate. And they're going to look like you just did. Because if we double our dropout rate, partly that means we're going to accept more kids into our system that right now we're pushing out and keeping out. And maybe they won't graduate. And I had to tell some of my staff the other day, and you mentioned the Bellingham Promise. Education is bigger than just a high school diploma. Now, I want every kid to get a high school diploma. You need it to be able to be successful. I want it, but it's not the only thing. And if I got a kid who's 18, this was one of the scenarios with only 2 credits, and schools doesn't seem to be the most important thing, we as a system push them away and say, you can't stay in our system anymore. You're not on track to graduate. And I think that's totally wrong. If it's an 18-year-old with 2 credits, there's something going on, and we probably got to bring them in and hold them even tighter, and it will take a community to do that, not just a teacher or a superintendent. So all that to be said, I wish you the best of luck on your journey. When I was here 20 years ago, wide-eyed and excited to go out and tackle the world, you have an opportunity to test the research and what you've learned with real-life practice, and then come back and do it again. Francisco named a couple universities I've gone to, and what's fun is to get your degree and then go practice that, learn, and then come back and get another degree and go back to school. When I left Western, I'd been to Gonzaga for 3 years, to University of Washington for 2, here for 2.5, and then I went and practiced what I'd learned, and then I went back to school at Eastern to get my principal certification, learned some more theory. Then I went back in the field and practiced and played with it, and then went back to Harvard, where I spent part of 6 years getting a master's and a doctorate. And now I'm back in the field playing with what I learned in that theory. And the theory, when you apply it to real life world, sometimes it doesn't quite play out like you learned. And then make a difference in kids' life. Every day, what I love about my job is I get to impact a kid's life, but then I get to figure out how to make a whole system impact and make it better. So I wish you well. Again, thank you for the honor of coming and speaking with you tonight, and best wishes to you.
There's a little gift for you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Well, you can see why we really wanted to have Dr. Baker here, both in terms of what you can tell he really values education, but really also exemplifies what you can do as a leader. And as a leader, even during your student teaching, even during your teaching time. And so think about all the ways that we're encouraging you in whatever career you're interested in. So continue to do what you do. We've invited 5 students, each representing one of the different programs that Kelci, Clare, from the Alumni Transportation Program. Come on up, Kelci.
Okay, so I brought my notes because this is you are not fourth graders. So, but recently I've been thinking a lot about what I've learned and what I've been taught while I've been at Western and while I've been inside Woodring. And what I realized is that these aren't the same things for me. So, over the past couple of years, we've been taught to take running records, we've been taught to teach kids to add fractions, we've been taught to teach kids to write a 5-paragraph essay or to know the reason they have seasons. We've learned to write lesson plans and we've been taught to build units and assess our students. But these are all of the things that I've been taught, and it's not, I've learned a lot more. I've learned a lot more than what I've been taught. So throughout my time on campus, I've learned that reflection is a tool that we always have access to. I've learned it time and time again, and it's something that I really take to heart. And reflection is just something I've seen in the classroom, I've seen it in my life, I've seen it all over, and it's just something that I think we all should take every opportunity to do. I've also learned that I should always start my day the way they do at Washington School, and all that takes is making a decision. You just have to say to yourself, make it a great day or not, the choice is yours. Every single one of our students does that every single day. And that's the way I need to start my day. I've learned that teaching is not a solo sport. It's not something that you can do alone, and it's not something I want to choose to do alone. We need the people around us, and we need people to encourage and support us, and people that truly understand what we do. And then, maybe most importantly, I've learned that people are good. In my time at Western, I've been surrounded by so many of the most kind and supportive and genuinely caring people. The most genuinely caring people that I've ever met. And these people have been classmates, they've been coworkers, and they've been professors, and they've been bosses for me. And I found myself surrounded by these wonderful people over and over and over again. Each one of them, and many of you, are anchors for me. And anchors are vital to our survival. They keep us steady when the waters are rough. And not only have so many people been anchors for me, but they've shown me that I can be an anchor too. That's why we're here, and that's what we're ready to be. So these aren't necessarily the things I've been taught. You won't find them on my plan of study, but they are the things that I've learned.
Kelci. We have a person who's representing our continuing and college education program, Effie Eisses. Is Effie here? Okay, I guess we aren't having someone from continuing and college education right now. Maybe they'll show up here in a little bit. Marcia Simonsen is from the Rehabilitation Counseling Program. And so come on up, Martha.
When I came to rehabilitation counseling, it was after earning a science degree here in health education, community health education. And I took all my electives in hypokinetic disease and exercise physiology, and because I'd had a major life-changing event with my health. And I was an older student then, and I'm a much older student now. When I graduated with my bachelor's degree, I ended up working for a physician who was a bariatric physician, and I counseled his patients. I educated his patients in a coaching type of way that is very close to some kind of counseling. And what I found was that people were coming in taking multiple medications, sometimes an average of 5 different kinds of medications for lifestyle diseases caused by poor nutrition and lack of movement in their lives. And I was amazingly successful. I could get people who lose 100 pounds in 88 days with no surgery, while they're still selling a lot of surgery. And then I started getting referrals from other doctors, other kinds of doctors who were sending patients to us. And I got referrals from Lake Whatcom Rehabilitation and Treatment Center. access to help and care. And in the process of getting my degree, this is a master's degree in rehabilitation counseling. During the process, the reflecting on what you're hearing, reflecting on the silences, reflecting on a better question you could have asked, or what somebody really needed to hear. That's the real education. Because now I'm working with people who can barely tell you who they are. And I have a vision now for the future, and you are all my allies, because this issue of separating the mind from the body, or the social issues, the psychosocial issues that we face in classrooms, the bullying, all of it ends up causing impairments. We accumulate impairments. Sometimes we're born with them. We all accumulate them. And it's a long time to become disabled. And once you're disabled, you're on the fringe. And everybody in education, I did my practicum in a special ed classroom, working with transition era age children, young adult people. And the hardest thing I had was the stigma of disability itself, or the label of disability itself, altering their performance and their goals and their wishes for themselves. And so what I was trying to do is get them to not want a diploma, trying to get them to, because they wouldn't want a diploma so they didn't have to come again. Trying to get them to delay a diploma and go and explore things that people do. Try to get actual internships or practicums or on-the-job training for them. Because if you can't compete, and the digital divide is the Grand Canyon, how do you support people in the long run? We're not adversaries, we just have to answer these questions. Thank you very much.
From our special education program, Courtnee Sinhlapasai.
Hi everyone, I'm Courtnee Sinhlapasai, and I'm a special education major with a dual endorsement in elementary education. I am currently student teaching in a 7th and 8th grade resource room, and to be honest, before I was really scared of middle school because they were the same height as me, and I was afraid they would beat me up and just providing them so much, and I wouldn't be able to do that without you. And I'm proud now. But what I've learned is that, if you have a passion for education, for youth, you gotta go for it. I mean, these kids need us, and there's so many kids out there who